Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Lastly, I'll be looking at the comments and responding for the next 3 hours after this video is released. If you want to chat, but you couldn't get your comment in within that time frame, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. I'll put that in the description below, or email me. Thanks. All right, everyone. So we're about an hour after market close on Tuesday, August 10th. We're going to take a look at STEM today. Now, STEM has earnings coming up on Wednesday, so tomorrow. Conference call is scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. And so the results will be issued at 4:05 p.m. Eastern Time prior to the call. So just after market close tomorrow, you'll have an idea of how they performed, and then at 5 o'clock, they'll fill in a bunch of details and maybe making an interesting announcement. Who knows? That's oftentimes when they like to do things like that, but it's never a guarantee, and might sort of clarify some guidance, which is always a strong mover of any reactivity to earnings. Now, STEM today saw a volume of just over 2 million, so about keeping pace with the average, but a little bit lower. I think a lot of folks are kind of staying relatively shy as it approaches earnings, as that can always be kind of a volatile period for better and for worse. And so a lot of times folks kind of tend to sit out and then either make decisions later on in the game if they want to jump in, or just kind of wait until after the announcement happens. Now, from a charting perspective, so this is just going to be focused on the chart and the indicators, and then we'll take a quick look at the data and talk about one other factor. But the first thing that I would like to take a look at is if there is a fib, if this fib retracement falls anywhere from this 16 low, already missed it, from this low here. Now I'm on the daily chart, and this low from this most recent run up was on 513, so this is about a month old. This run would have started, and now we obviously have a pullback. So what I'm looking to see here is whether or not this pullback is into a zone that would make sense. Okay, so it's come down to the 50. It bounced off of very close to the 618. So to me, this could be a good potential candidate for fib extension levels, meaning if we take this as the first wave up, an impulsive move up that peaked out here, and then the move down which bottomed out here, these would give us extension levels up that we could use as price targets to either think about trimming positions, locking in profit, exiting the position as the upper price target is hit, or what have you. We also just look at them as areas where it's likely to hit some resistance, that if then it can flip to support, it could make a run toward the next zone. So to me, this is a strong candidate for this. You of course have to watch it and see what happens as the actual price action plays out. If it comes down and it can't hold this 2480 level, then that sort of blows up the entire chart, right, and says, okay, this is an invalid hypothesis, and so don't sort of follow the logic around it. Now, if something does go through a true extension, what I typically like to do is set my initial targets. And again, sometimes by initial target, I mean that's where I'm going to take all the profit. Sometimes that means where I'm going to start taking profit. But I typically look for 100% extension level. If it truly plays out as an extension, and the coming days will tell us. And of course, earnings will have a lot to do with that. But it could be interesting to see here if it could make that run up over $46, and that's a lot of meat on the bone to be realized as gain potential in the coming days and weeks. And again, this is on the daily chart, so this is sort of like a longer term situation. It's not a short term get in and get out quickly. And like I said, earnings will certainly throw a bunch of that into volatile question. Looking back here, if there are some additional areas of interest, looking to see if anything lines up as previous support and resistance. To me, this 50 is right on the noggin of, very within 2 cents. You see previous support here, resistance, 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 resistance that flipped to support, and then support found when it tried to run back down again. So that could be a pretty strong zone once it gets there, just meaning it could hit really strong resistance there if it makes an attempt at that 35 mid to high 35 range. And then the benefit to that, though, is if it can overcome that resistance zone and establish it as support, that should then be very, very strong support to the upside. Now, if there's anything below, just in case there is sort of like a catastrophic outcome from this, the call and the report tomorrow, I have no way of knowing either way, but these are two zones to the downside that I would look for. And then obviously this most recent low, which I would probably put the extension of that probably to about here, just because of the previous resistance that we saw there, and then the support of these candlesticks here. And this one is pretty tight into that, stretched down a little bit further than 1613, but those would be the ones to the downside that I would look for support. So obviously there's the potential for a pretty significant drop if it can't hold at 2025, as it would fall $4 or more to that next support level, as I see it anyway. All right, on the indicator side of things, we take a look at the MACD on the daily. So we are entering potentially a bullish trend. We see the MACD here is well under the baseline, which is sort of the first criteria for it having a lot of room to run up, as you saw here. So it's crossed over well under the baseline and then had a lot of room to run up, and didn't even run up that high. You saw it ran up much higher previous to this, and so that was part of the reason, I think, why the bullish momentum quelled pretty quickly, was because overall it was in a downturn in terms of bullish momentum. But at some point, if it's going to turn up higher, then it's going to reverse that. And you never know exactly when that's going to happen, but you take the indications as they come and try to make the best decision you can with the info that you have. So right now, entering a bullish crossover, so it'll be up to STEM to sort of play that out and continue to increase the distance between the MACD and the signal line here, and see if it can stretch well above where this topped out previously. That's what you'd want to see, to sort of say, okay, we're reversing trend here and we're kind of entering a time of bullish momentum in STEM. On the MA side of things, you see price action closed and is established right now above the 20 MA, which is a good sign. 200 is still situated underneath as support, and then if it can establish price action over the 50 MA, then there's a bullish crossover, the 20 over the 50. That'll be an additional really, really strong factor that would be turning very bullish. So that would be a really good indication in my mind. And then the RSI, so this is really common what we're seeing here. Now we're seeing a nice bullish move up on the RSI. It's making a bunch of higher lows while it's making higher highs. So it's almost establishing like a channel here, like you would see in the candlestick chart. But it's sitting right now just shy of the midline. Midline is 50. So what we often see is, and you see it over here, it attempts to establish support at the midline, and if it can't, it often gets shoved down quite significantly, and here it dipped all the way into true oversold territory, and then it was a nice clean run up into overbought. But right now it's sort of like in that risky zone of, is it going to get shoved down from the midline and get pushed down toward or through oversold, which would obviously bring it down more toward this 2480 area, or is it going to be able to establish support over that and make a run toward overbought and the 70 range? So that's what I would be keeping an eye on. But again, earnings is going to kind of throw a lot of this in disarray, but you may see some of this stuff play out if there is a big reaction up or down, these support levels to the downside and these extension levels to the upside. So time will tell. We don't have to wait very long to find out. Now, quickly on the data side of things, looking at Ortex here, I just want to point out a couple of things. Well, really just one thing. So on the short interest side of things, if we do see a move up, right now it's just shy of 10%. As far as Ortex's estimate goes of the free float being shorted, and shorts kind of peeling off at the moment. So it might be an indication there's not going to be a lot of pressure from the shorts in order, that the bulls would be fighting, and that can obviously cause some distortion issues in the stock. So I would just keep an eye on that as well, especially if there's a big move up. if the shorts start to come in quite heavily, sort of seeing that as an opportunity to take advantage of what they would believe to be an overreaction to good earnings and a run up that feels to them overextended. So you might start to incur some of that pressure in the coming days, but I would just keep an eye on it and see what you find as that plays out, because the precursor, the thing that would have to happen first there of what I just mentioned, was that there was a really strong bullish reaction to the earnings. So that's the first thing that is sort of like to be seen. All right, well, that's the chart as I see it. I certainly wish you the best. I hope your trading week is going well, and I will see you in the next video.